From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I am your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. It's Andre Johnson.
Junior.
Do not forget the Junior is very important to remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, and review. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, get the bell notification. But when we drop that fire content, and today it's Monday, tough Monday in the city of New Orleans. We haven't had this in a while. After 7 straight, we hadn't had this the last 3 Mondays, but alas, here we are. Saints had an opportunity, but they come up short against the LA Rams. They lose 21-14. They had their hands on the ball at the end of the game and couldn't get it done. Plus, they suffer even more brutal news today. We will get into that momentarily. But first, Andre, I saw you all weekend, so I can't say how was your weekend because I saw you, but how you feeling today?
You know, I was starting to enjoy the feeling of Victory Monday.
Me too,
you know,
man.
after the Saints got a win, it's happy all around the city. We deal with the Saints players a lot, and they're obviously a lot more cheerful coming off a win on Sunday than coming off what we saw in the Dome yesterday.
It's tough, man. It's tough, and you knew that we're going to have to do something that hadn't necessarily been done or an extreme outlier to get done. That's with an interim coach to win his first 3 games as interim coach. Rizzy gave it a ride.
Yeah.
Came up short. And look, they weren't rusty. You know, the bye week, I thought, helped them. It sucked that they didn't have Eric McCoy. I think he would have made that a game. But if they came out, they took over the first quarter. It wasn't like, a rusty team. It just takes a minute to get into rhythm. They got into rhythm pretty quickly. But they lose the game 21-14. In the process of the game, as you all saw, Taysom Hill goes out with a knee injury. If you were in the Dome, it was agonizing to see. And today, the news that everyone feared was confirmed. He is out for the season. So we have 2 big topics, but we picked that as the big picture topic today. But this will be one of those shows where both of our topics could have been big picture topics because it falls into that category. But we're going to go with the latest hit to the injury bug. Taysom Hill now gone for the season.
Yeah, Saints tight end, running back, wide receiver, quarterback, kick returner, sometimes special teams guy, Taysom Hill will not be in a Saints uniform for the rest of the season. And obviously that's a huge loss for a team who has dealt with injuries throughout the season, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But the season's not over. As the Saints look towards the future and trying to finish out this last month and a half, how does this team even begin to function without Taysom Hill?
We'll see. First off, absolutely brutal news. Brutal, B-R-U-T-A-L, brutal news.
Exclamation point.
Think about when it happened. I mean, he had just converted a true Taysom play. 4th and 2. QB power to the left, finds daylight, meets a guy at the sticks, and gets over just enough to extend the drive for his team to keep what ended up being their final drive of the game alive. Side note, just my opinion, but the play before he caught the pass, he had to come back to get it. Looked like the defender got there early, and had there been a PI right there, that's a first down instead of a 4th down, and who knows what could have happened. But that is what if. We are dealing with what is. Such a Taysom play on the QB power. Such a Taysom play. Like I said, bounces it to daylight. Collision. Look, man, the defender went low. It's football. It was a football play. I didn't think it was a dirty play. He went low. He caught Taysom at the exact spot where it bent the knee, which is not easy to do in an awkward situation. It went in the direction you're not supposed to go with your knee. And when you saw the replay, everyone knew. Seeing him agonize on the field was just painful to watch. He's banging the turf. When the camera kind of caught in the face mask, you can rarely see him grimacing in his face, and he was in some serious pain. And when the cart came out, obviously we all knew it was over. That Taysom chant, man, I caught chills. You in there? Yeah. I mean, I caught chills. You just don't see that much. That was something else. And this is just me here, but I bet if you polled Saints fans today about their current Saints roster, who their favorite player is, I bet Taysom's at the top of that list.
You just got to listen on when the team runs out, who gets the loudest applause.
That's it. I bet it's Taysom Hill, old number 7. You saw it in that moment. And I also thought it was pretty telling that I'm looking over. I see the Saints players, but I also see a ton of Rams players running over there just to kind of embrace him a little bit when he was on the card. The guy earned the respect of everyone in the NFL, and rightfully so. No one comes close to doing what he does. And that is why his injury simply cannot be overcome. It cannot be overcome. Taysom does too much. He does too much for this version of the Saints offense, the new version of the Saints offense. He was used a lot before Kubiak got here. He's being used a lot more since Kubiak has been here. He does the work of like 6 people. I mean, think about that. One guy does the job of like 6 people. There just isn't a soul on this team or any team in the NFL that can fill in for Taysom. We all know the positions. Officially a tight end, but tight end, running back, fullback, quarterback, receiver, slot receiver, punt returner, personal protector, and kick returner.
And don't let them feel like blocking a punt because they might get out there and do that too.
And punt rush as well. His versatility and production due to that versatility just simply will not be matched. And don't underestimate the mental bandwidth and football IQ it takes to do all those things at the level he does it. It's not supposed to happen at this level. You can maybe see at the high school level where things are fairly simple, not a whole lot of checks, not a whole lot of adjustments. Maybe in college you'll see it. I know Travis Hunter is a perfect example of that, but not in the NFL. It's too specialized. There's too many adjustments. There's too much gray area in the NFL game to truly be able to handle all that. And that's why you haven't seen another Taysom, and you won't see another Taysom. He will not be replicated on the field. And for the Saints, it comes at the worst time because they don't have any weapons left. They just don't. And they just lost their most versatile and second best weapon on offense. Plus, we have documented just how much Clint Kubiak has gravitated to Taysom. He's on pace for his most receptions. He was, anyway. He had 33, I think, last year. He had 23 after this game. He had 10 touches in this game. Probably would have had more had he stayed in. That 3rd down and 4th down at the end probably would have looked a lot different. Yeah. When it comes to Kubiak's play calling and the ebb and flow of the game, he's just so much more confident when Taysom's in the game. He just has so much of a better feel of what he wants to do in the game. I just hope this isn't the end of the line for Taysom, because it sure looked like when he was down and grimacing and the cart came out, you just hope that's not the last down he ever played in football. I mean, that guy's been through a lot. His body's been punished, and it was well before he even got to the NFL. It's been well documented what he went through at BYU, 4 straight season-ending injuries. But now he's been not healthy, but healthy enough to play that style of ball. And he's 34 years old. He's taken a beating and likely has a grueling, we talked to Deuce earlier, he's gone through this twice, a grueling rehab process ahead of him. He is under contract for 1 more year, and it's a legit contract. It's not one of those where if they cut him, they save a bunch of money. No. Because of all the restructures, it doesn't make sense. So if he wants to come back, there is a spot for him, obviously. It's just a matter of does he want to do it again. And to be completely fair, none of us have talked to Taysom, and he has given us no indication whatsoever that he would want to retire. But that would be the route he would have to take if he did not return to the Saints in 2025. If this is it for Taysom, what an incredible run it has been. I mean, truly has transformed the league with that unique skill set no one can truly match. Juan Kincaid, who were taping the overtime show a little while ago, asked me on the show, how do they replace him offensively? You don't. You just don't. And you basically take all the Taysom plays. The play he scored, the play he got the 4th and 2 on, the QB counter, the QB power, the zone read. You just take those plays, you flip them in the playbook, just rip them out. Just rip them out. You don't have them anymore. They don't exist. You got to win in another way without Taysom or anything remotely close to doing what Taysom Hill does. No one else can execute them with any level of effectiveness. So you just got to hope you got enough without Taysom, because you don't just not have Taysom, the productive player. You don't have him on the field anymore. So all things that were built around 7 just simply don't exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I have it written down as well. Taysom is your most irreplaceable player.
Yeah.
Not just on this team. You could argue he's the most irreplaceable player in the entire NFL.
Yeah.
And you immediately felt the impact of his absence when he went down in that game.
Yes.
Because literally seconds later, the Saints find themselves in another short yardage situation. Mm-hmm. And you would like to think the play calling would have been a lot different if you've got number 7 compared to if he wasn't on a cart heading to the medical room. So you felt the impact immediately when he went out against the Rams. And if we take it back a little further, week 4 against Atlanta, Taysom Hill scored twice against Atlanta. And then he got injured. And right after Taysom Hill got injured, it was like a tale of two teams.
That's it.
You didn't even recognize the offense against the Falcons the first time around after Taysom got hurt. And they went on to lose that game. And then you look, I'm going to scratch out the Spencer Rattler stuff because there was a lot going on. The Saints didn't have their quarterback either. But you look at the only other game that Derek Carr played without Taysom, and that was that game against Kansas City.
Yeah.
That might have been the worst the offense looked all year.
All year, yeah.
Against Kansas City. In Kansas City, I think they scored 13 points without Taysom. That offense struggled. And that was a game where they had both Olave and Rashid Shaheed still with Alvin Kamara back there. But Taysom is just simply irreplaceable, especially when it comes to the short yardage situations, especially when it comes to red zone situations, because you look at him as a runner. The Saints have had so many injuries at running back.
Yeah.
Jamal Williams just got back yesterday, but he missed 2 games. Kendre Miller's missed most of the season. The only person that's been able to reliably give Alvin Kamara a break so he's not getting 30 touches a game has been Taysom. You look at him as a receiver. Derek Carr, he said yesterday in the press conference, he said, if you told me at the beginning of the season that I'd be throwing to Kevin Austin, Dante Pettis, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I'd probably look at you a little sideways. Yeah. Derek Carr is dealing with a lot of people who he has built next to zero chemistry with. And Taysom has been kind of a rock for him because Taysom is somebody who he played with last year. Taysom is somebody who he's built a level of chemistry up with. And you saw against Cleveland, you saw it against LA, you saw it against Atlanta. When Carr's in trouble, he's looking for number 7 out there.
A lot, yes.
Taysom, and I know Marquez Valdez-Scantling, when you look at the yards and you look at the touchdowns, he's been the biggest receiving threat because of the big plays. But when it comes to just sheer targets and receptions, it's Taysom that Derek Carr has been looking at. Even yesterday, I don't think he ran one out, but Taysom Hill caught the majority of the kick returns.
Kick returns, yeah.
So he's out there doing kick returns as well. And then something that always goes unnoticed with Taysom is the work he's doing as a blocker.
When
yes, Alvin Kamara's toting that thing. There's so many things that he does to make this offense go. We saw a little sneak peek of it earlier this year, second half against Atlanta and Kansas City, what it looks like without Taysom. And as we look over the last, 5 games of the season, I'm not very excited to see how much this team is going to feel that absence.
You said something a few minutes ago that was interesting. You lose Shaheed, you can, what he does best, you may not find someone that does it as good as him, but you can find someone that can do that.
And they did find someone.
And they have. Olave is Olave. The route tree, the smoothness that he plays with. You're not going to find someone to have that style, but you can at least find I don't even call it a poor man's version, but you can find a receiver that can run middle of the field routes. Let's put it that way. At least it's in the playbook.
Yeah.
There is no one that can do what Taysom does to any effect. I mean, who else can run QB power?
Nobody.
Who else can run QB counter? No one. You would have to put Kamara back there to do that.
Even the read options where they have Taysom and Kamara back there at the same time.
Exactly. You don't have a quarterback that can do that unless you bring in Spencer Rattler, which is a huge tell. Maybe Jake Hayner. I mean, I guess Carr could do, but you're not going to do any effectiveness.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. You can't replace him. You just have to live without him. That's the only way you can do it. Now, I don't know how they do that because, as we're about to get into, they don't have a lot of weapons. They just don't have a lot left. They could get a couple coming back. I know Kendre's supposed to be opening up the practice window today, but I mean that's a totally different type player. So. Yeah. The Taysom situation, this is the injury that they're just not going to be able to overcome, and we'll just see how they finish with life without him. I just hope it's not the end of his career. I hope he's back for one more year to give it one more run with the Saints, and hopefully they can have some success next season.
Notice nobody said next man up because
no, somehow that
next man up all season.
The next man up phrase somehow was not used when Taysom went down.
Yeah, we've heard next man up all season, but when it comes to Taysom,
ain't nobody said
there
that.
is no next man up.
That's true. That's a great line.
Right.
All right, so what do we have next? I mean, look, Taysom was a huge blow and the huge news today, obviously. But normally on a Monday, we talk about what went wrong in a Saints game. But this news was obviously huge, so we had to start with Taysom Hill. But that's what we want to go next, because we know that's a lot what you guys want to talk about, and that's what we want to talk about. So let's talk about this Saints game against the Rams, because it could have been won, but it was not.
Yeah, what went wrong against the Rams is essentially what's been going wrong all season for the Saints, and that's the inability to close close games. The Saints are now 1-4 in one-score ball games this season. We saw them lose against the Eagles. We saw them lose against the Falcons. We saw them lose against the Panthers, all one-score games. They lose Sunday against the Rams, another one. The only one-score game they won was against the Atlanta Falcons, which is a game where the Falcons missed 3 field goals. So, Sean, as we look at a team that struggled under Dennis Allen when it comes to situational football, they struggled yesterday under Darren Rizzi when it comes to situational football. What's going on with the Saints not being able to close in the fourth quarter?
Close games. All right. Thought a lot about this because, everything is the margin for error is slim in the NFL. We know that. The difference between good and great and bad and terrible, or terrible and great, it's not nearly as wide as you think. And you're usually about a draft class or 2 away from getting back to relevance, if that is indeed the case, and just the way the parity and the rules, everything. It's a hard league to dominate. So it's a league where you have to thrive in tense, close situations. And the story was about to be written, wasn't it?
Yep.
It was about to be written. Back from the dead. The Saints now just a game out of the NFC South lead. We talked about it on this podcast Friday.
We did.
Gain a game in the NFC South standings. And the Falcons did their part. Of course, they choked it away to the Chargers.
Bucks almost lost to the Panthers.
The improbable run continues, this time in dramatic fashion. Final drive. 8 minutes and 54 seconds, you got the ball back on the clock. That's how much was left when you got the ball back. They didn't give that ball back to the Rams till just about a minute left. That was a long, methodical drive. It was a flawlessly paced drive. I'm not even sure that was the original intent at the start of the drive, but it kind of developed into that. Final drive, touchdown, 2-point for the win, which Rizzi said they were going to do. Absolutely was the right call. Rizzi has now resurrected the Saints. The swag is back that they had lost for so long. This, we would have undoubtedly said, was exactly the type of game they would no doubt have lost under the man they let go a few weeks ago. So close to that being the story.
Yep.
Yet, it wasn't meant to be again. Instead, more of the same. Close, but not there, and running out of time to get there. So, back to the original question. Why can't they win these close games? We've seen Saints teams win close games. We've seen Saints teams and other teams thrive in close situations. We're watching with the Super Bowl champions right now. In the NFL, there is no debating it. You have to win one-score games. It is a one-score league, and the best teams do it. The bad teams don't. The Saints undeniably are not one of the best teams in the NFL because they cannot do this consistently. They're 1-4. To win one-score games, you have to make big plays and big moments and tense situations. This team is not making those big plays and big moments and big situations because they do not have enough playmakers. Making plays requires playmakers. It's the same word. You just got to rearrange the word. Making plays requires playmakers. They don't have enough. Look at the last play of the game. Look at the last play. The options were MVS, Dante Pettis, and Juwan Johnson on the passing play. I like MVS a lot. I think he's coming here. I think he's been a savior. I think he's been fantastic. You understand why that guy was coveted around the league and why he's made plays. And I would love him with Chris Olave and with Rashid Shaheed and with some other players. But he cannot completely offset the losses of those guys. Pettis made a nice play on that 2-point conversion, but come on, you cannot expect him to make big play after big play after big play, because if that happens, that's more of a bonus. That's not an expectation. Plus, they didn't have Taysom. We talked about it. I mean, how different would that 4th and 3 have looked had you had Taysom on the field with Kamara and with Juwan and with those other guys on the field? You probably would not have had Pettis on the field at that point.
Correct.
Which would have changed the play call and probably would have changed the defense, which, as I've watched that play now a couple of times, was a huge factor in the lack of success on that play. So it should be noted that we thought they were short a playmaker when they were at full strength.
Yep.
When you want to be a good team to a great team, I still stand by that. Now that you've lost all these players and you weren't that strong in that category to begin with, you were never going to be a contending type team, a true contending type team. But now you don't have enough playmakers to consistently make plays in big moments. If you can't make big plays in big moments, you're not going to win one close games. You're going to hopefully win a few games like you've won by double digits, but good luck trying to make a living off of that. That doesn't happen. That's the outlier in the NFL when it comes to wins. The bottom line is simply this. You want to know why this team consistently loses close games? Consistently comes up short in making plays when it matters the most? It's simple. They don't have enough playmakers. And until they get more playmakers, it's going to always be like this. Feel like you're close, but not close enough. And until they address that, and that falls on everyone, the roster, the depth, whatever you want to say, they were short coming into the season. They're even shorter now, and that's why you're losing these games like this.
And to your point, when you look at the elite teams in this league, they all have that guy. When it comes to the Chiefs, Travis Kelce has had a slow year, but 4th and 3, game on the line.
Who's he going to?
You know who Patrick Mahomes is going to get that ball to. With the Lions, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. With the Eagles, you've got Saquon and A.J. Brown. With the Bengals, you know that ball's going to Jamar Chase. Justin Jefferson, if it's the 9-2 Vikings. Derrick Henry, if we're talking about the Ravens. I was watching the Panthers and the Bucks yesterday. Mike Evans,
that's the guy.
When the game was on the line, every pass went to Mike Evans, and he converted. If anybody was that guy for the Saints, it was probably Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
And you lost that guy, on the play a couple plays before. So to your point, the Saints don't have that playmaker. And also they've been unable to put together a complete game. You hear coaches talking about we need to play a complete game in all phases. When it comes down to it, when the rubber meets the road, they have not been able to do that. You look at some of their close losses early in the season, Philadelphia, the offense scores late, the defense gives up the big play. Atlanta, the offense scores late, the defense has a pass interference. Younghoe Koo hits the long field goal. Then against the Panthers, when you lost to the Panthers, the offense actually had the ball and was moving with an opportunity to get into field goal range late. Long pass to, I believe it was Cedric Wilson, doesn't work out.
Not even close.
Turnover on downs. You lose to the, at that time, hapless Carolina Panthers. Yesterday, the defense did give up the lead late in the game, but you get the ball back with 8 minutes. Like you said, you're putting a good drive together with all of the intentions to go for 2 and end this game and not let it get into overtime, and the offense couldn't get it done. Early in the season, it was the defense. Now it's the offense. The defense has been better recently. The defense was kind of the problem early. It just seems like both units cannot play their best game at the same time.
And what does that mean? That's two equal sections of mishap.
Yeah.
You don't have enough players. You don't have good enough players in those situations. You don't have good enough top-notch playmakers in those situations to rise to the level of play in those situations. It's about the personnel. I don't think it's a lack of clutch gene. I don't think it's you can say lack of execution, but to me, lack of execution also comes down to the players you have executing it. That play, for instance, they called that play. I don't know if it was an audible or not or whatever. I know there was a little bit of a discrepancy with that with the play call with Rizzy today. They checked into it. It's a high-low thing to the right where Valdez-Scantling is running it out, kind of an out curl, and Pettis is running not exactly a corner route, but it's more of a sail route. So they're high-lowing it based off the coverage. They got zone. Juwan Johnson's number 3 coming across the middle of the field there, but he goes further to his left, then cuts back in. He moves the safety, but instead of cutting right back to the corner, he takes 2 steps forward and then cuts across. And if you see Carr, that's when he's clutching. Yep. It's like, come on, get open. It's there. Would have been a touchdown, but had he he did what he was supposed to do. He got the safety to kind of move his feet, and if he just cuts back to the corner instead of kind of reshuffling his feet, going straight, and then cutting over, then it's a touchdown. But it's just in those situations, you just don't have the guy to go to. And I don't think I'll have the guy this year. They're going to have to – it's just not going to happen. So that's where we're at with it, and that's where I think the Saints are at with it. You want to win these plays. When you want to win these games, you got to have the guy. You got to have at least a couple of guys you trust. And I just don't think they have good enough playmakers to make those type of plays in those type of situations.
Yeah, and it was almost painful to watch as a fan, either on TV or in the dome. It's one of those plays where I believe it was Jared Verse comes from the blind side. So Carr can't see him.
Yeah.
But everybody in the
else
building
can see
sees him, and it's like that, and then boom, ball skirts out, game over, and just moving forward for the Saints, I've been saying it all year, pray for Alvin Kamara, because now it's even more on AK's shoulders, because we talk about playmakers. There's one true playmaker left on this team, and it's number 41.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't foresee Olave coming back anytime soon.
I don't think so either.
I mean, certainly he would bring an element, but I don't know if you can count on that. I know Kendra's supposed to come back. Maybe he probably will, but I mean, you're just having a totally different attack, or any of those guys outside of Kamara, good enough to be that guy in that situation. I don't see it. So you're talking about it boils down to the roster. Was the roster good enough, or is the roster good enough to truly contend and to continue have to do those moments in those games? Play like that in those moments in those games. I just don't think that they have, and it's a shame because close gets it exciting, and they're playing better under Rizzi, but they still have the same issues. So that's why I think it's a little bit more than just coaching. We got to get out of here. Anything else before we go?
I said it. It's hard to start 3-0 as an interim head coach because eventually you see why the previous coach didn't make it. And yesterday was one of those times.
It is. And look, I'm pulling for Riz because I want to see him do well. I want to see the Saints do well. I don't know if he's going to get the job. I know one loss was not going to kill him because I don't think they expect him to go undefeated. But we'll see what happens. For Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.